Well, hey folks, Jason here again, and we are starting session 6, episode 6, in the Christmas story according to the Gospel of Matthew. Now, where we left off was in chapter 2, verse 12, and in talking about the wise men. It says, and being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Now, it doesn't list which country it is, but it is assumed it would be the area of Babylon, modern-day Iraq. Now, we talked about how Herod wanted to kill these children and why. So we're going to pick up here in verse 13 and talk about that. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. I don't know why the camera's focusing in and out like that, guys, but it is. I'm sorry. Verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all the region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled. He shall be called a Nazarene. So let's start here in verse 13. We see that Herod wanted to destroy Jesus. And why did he want to do that? Well, first of all, Herod wanted to stay on the throne. Jesus was supposed to be the king of the Jews, and that was Herod's job. And Herod, well, actually, as we go back to the original genealogy that we spent about 4 sessions on, we see that there was the Davidic line, the line of David, that the king will always be in that Davidic line. Now, King Herod is not from that Davidic line. He was actually placed there by Rome. This was Israel at this time was a Roman colony, so he was placed there. He was never supposed to be there. So he's trying to save his own skin, first of all. Second, we need to go back again to Genesis chapter 3. Now, this is the very first sin that happened. And let's just go over this. I've shared this in one of the previous videos. But this is after Adam and Eve sinned. And God is having a pretty strong talking to them and the serpent, which represents Satan. In Genesis 3:14, it says, The Lord said to the serpent, Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock, and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman. Now, enmity is a word meaning warring, strife, rage, anger, all of that put together. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Now, from this, we see that there is going to be warring in between Satan and this offspring from the woman. Now, we talked about the woman and all of this in a previous video. I think it was the last one. Take a look at that. Anyway, Herod was furious. Let's jump down to verse 14. And he rose and took the child, this is Joseph, and he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. So God is showing all of these fulfilled prophecies, even in the infancy of Jesus. Verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all the region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Now, before we go any further, as we look at the nativity scenes, we see that there's Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, the angels, Jesus, the manger, and the wise men. The wise men were never at the manger. From here, we see that they arrived when Jesus was about 2 years old. So that's just one of these traditional things. We will talk more about what happened in the manger later on. But think about this, on how horrific it would be to have your whole region, every child 2 years old, every male child every 2 years old and younger, being slaughtered by the army. This then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. What does this prophecy mean? Well, first of all, this slaughter took part in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is the southern part of Israel. It is south of Jerusalem. Now, where's Ramah? Ramah is the northern tip of Israel. So just some geography. If you are from Canada, especially Alberta, the distance here would be, Bethlehem would be Calgary, and Ramah would be Edmonton. Okay, if you're from the United States and you're watching this, Bethlehem would be Houston, and Ramah would be Dallas. And so what the prophet is saying here is, not only could people in the north hear this, all of Israel was weeping and screaming and lamenting and crying over this atrocity where Herod sent to kill all the male children 2 years old and younger. Now, it says Rachel weeping for her children. Who is Rachel? Rachel is one of the two wives of Jacob. Jacob married, he loved Rachel, and he was in agreement with Laban, Rachel's father, to marry her. And on his wedding night, Laban tricked Jacob and gave him Leah first. And he found out in the morning that he was tricked, and he had to work for Laban another 7 more years in order to get Rachel, the one that he loved. So this is the wife that Jacob loved the most, who was weeping over the children of the Bethlehem area. This prophecy was foretold almost 600 years, 700 years before it happened. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, that was spoken by the prophets. Went to and lived in a city called Nazareth, that was spoken by the prophets, might be fulfilled, that he shall be called a Nazarene. Now, nowhere in the Old Testament does it go out and just say he shall be called a Nazarene. Well, then why would the Bible say this? Is it lying? Is it fabricating things? No. When it comes down to the Hebrew language, every word, and especially every name, has a specific meaning. And the word Nazareth actually means branch. Okay? Now, if you look at in the Old Testament for the messianic word for branch, it shows up 5 times. It shows up in Isaiah 4:2, Jeremiah 23:5, Jeremiah 33:15, Zechariah 3:8, and Zechariah 6:12. So that's why Matthew says that he went and lived in the city called Nazareth, that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled. By the prophets. There's 3 prophets here that spoke about the branch, the Nazareth, the Nazarene, that Jesus would be called that. Anyway, that's where we're at. That is the Christmas story according to Matthew. Just remember, this is a very gruesome part of the story, that someone would come and slaughter these children. There is always going to be warring until Christ returns in glory between Satan and God's people. And as you look throughout history, there was always some sort of genocide to the Jews and to Christians. A little side note here, did you know that in the last century, there were more Christians slaughtered for their faith throughout the world than all the previous 20 centuries combined? Because of Jesus. There is a hatred for us. But as Christians, we are called to love our enemies. And Jesus came to a place that was hostile towards him and showed his love. That's the Christmas story. My next video will be the Christmas story according to the Gospel of Luke. We'll see you there.